Hey guys, it's another episode of Go Teen Writers Live, and we are going to dive right in today. Jill, are you going to read our questions?
You bet. Our first question comes from Olivia F. The question is, if you query an editor or agent or publishing house and are rejected and then fix a lot of the problems with your manuscript, is it acceptable to query the same person or house again, or is that considered rude since they already said no? Who would like to jump in and start with that one?
I can answer. I've only ever done this once. I think that, I suppose I don't think that there is a guideline that's like across the board for this one. I think this is going to be dependent upon the agency. Some of them will actually tell you in their submission guidelines because this is a common question. So they'll actually answer it for you. So before you do that, maybe check out their frequently asked questions on their agency website, which most agencies out there have one these days, even if it's a solo agent doing their own thing. You should always check out their website. You should look under the tab that says submission guidelines. They're going to have one of those too, most likely. So read and see what they say. They may answer that question for you. I cannot remember. I wish I could remember the agency. It was really early on in my journey, and I had the same thing. I've changed a ton of stuff in my manuscript. My first answer to your question, though, would be, or my most important answer to your question would be, if you've changed stuff in your manuscript, that's not enough. They probably rejected you based on your query. And so you need to make sure you're changing stuff in your query if you just do decide to send something else over. And I wouldn't continue to pepper them with things, but dropping them a kind email that just says, hey, I've changed a lot of stuff in the past 6 months. Don't do it after 2 weeks. That's just silly. I've changed a lot of things in the past 6 months. And I have an updated query. Can I send that over? Or you could just say, here it is, it's attached. But just be polite. I mean, people are humans and they understand these things and they understand the process of writing a book. I don't know that there's a guideline across the board. Have you guys run into that?
Well, sometimes I think it depends on how much was read. Like if they requested a partial from you or a full manuscript and then came back and said, hey, we don't think it's for us, we're going to pass, then that's something that I wouldn't think that, right. I think that's not an invitation to submit again. Even if you change stuff, they're just saying, hey, this isn't the right book for us. If they gave you specific feedback, then a lot of times it's okay, I think, to do revisions. Like Shannon mentioned, you wouldn't want to do like 2 weeks of work on it and then get back to them. So I think it kind of depends on the type of rejection you get.
Yeah. Jill?
Yeah, I agree with all that. You just kind of have to feel each situation uniquely. And obviously, if you can talk to them face to face, that's the best because then you can have a conversation. But if you have to go through email, you have to go off the clues from the previous email, the rejection, and see, what was said.
Yeah.
Excuse me. I think also, I just lost it.
It happens. It's real.
Yep. All right, maybe that'll come back. Oh, I know what I was going to say. Is to not argue. Like if they respond with a, hey, we have some young adult books that are like that, but they're just not selling for us right now. You don't want to respond with a, well, I've read those young adult books of yours and here's why they're not selling and here's why mine will, or what makes my books different, or things like that. Like you don't want to kind of push back at it. It just doesn't, it doesn't lead you anywhere good. You're not going to change their mind on it. So it's not worth the time, and it kind of leaves a sour taste in their mouth.
Yeah. That phrase, publishing is smaller than you think it is, that's honest and true and a very, very good thing to never, ever forget.
Yes, this also, it's frustrating for all of us. It always has been. And so if it's frustrating for you and you feel like you're just at the end of your rope, we understand. We have been there and you probably will be there again sometime, but that doesn't mean you should quit or give up. But you can't wrestle them into saying, yes, it doesn't work that way. So sometimes you might just have to put it down and start writing something new for a while, or look for some different houses you haven't reached out to yet.
Yeah. Good. I like it.
Okay, then. Shall I read the next question?
Let's do it.
The next question is from Claudia C. It says, how would you go about creating a cast of characters from scratch?
My answer is that I wouldn't. I suppose it just comes down to how you view story, how you view the drafting process. All of my characters arrive to me in my head on the page because they make sense in the story idea that I have. Sometimes for me, my story appears with a character first. I have a character that I'm curious about. Certain attributes of that character will come to me and I want to know. I have a question about it. And so the cast of characters will be built to surround her and build her and make her world come alive. Other ways that story ideas come to me would be, I have an idea for a great set piece or a world that I want to examine, or even a question. This is an existential question I want to think about. And in that case, the first thing I usually do is develop a main character. And once I have that one character, the cast, again, just like I said before, is going to grow up around that character. So I've never considered it growing characters from scratch. I would start with story. That would be my piece of advice.
I totally agree that I kind of do it the same way. What I would add is, so for example, I have this girl and I see this girl and I know that she has magic and she's going to lie about who she is and try to go to this magic school because if they find out who she is, she's a slave. She's not allowed to go. So she's going to pretend to be somebody else. And this is my story idea. Okay, now what do I need? Well, I want to have a romantic element. So I'm going to need some kind of guy. Who should he be? And so then I start asking questions about like which makes the most sense. And of course, if she's at this magic school, then and the way I want the magic to work, I know a little bit about that. So I think, well, she's going to need some instructors, and some are going to be like bad guy, evil guys, and some are going to be like, the old Obi-Wan mentor. So I'm going to need, I think archetypes a little bit as I'm trying to just define what types of characters and kinds of characters I'll need. And then obviously I'm going to have to, once I decide, then I'm going to have to go into those characters more and spend time figuring out like what they're about and why, and a little bit about their backstory and all that kind of thing. But it's kind of just a rabbit trail as I try to put the story together.
Yeah.
I'm sorry, Shannon, did I cut you off?
No, you're good. I was just agreeing.
Okay. So I think it's one of those processes that's kind of hard to define exactly. I don't have like here's what I do first, and then I do this next. For me, like Shannon and Jill have talked about, a lot of times it depends on just what the story needs. Where the idea for the character and the story, like take them apart, they're kind of woven together. And I think as far as the rest of the characters, it is looking at what serves the story best. I'm always looking to feed the main plot. So I don't want any characters that don't serve the main story goal. But I also want characters who will show my main character or my main story plot from a different side. So like in The Lost Girl of Astor Street, I'm looking for, so we have two guys who I kind of ended up with an unintentional love triangle in that book. But one of the guys is the guy that's the path my main character would have gone on if her best friend had not been taken. It's the trajectory that she was on. And then the other guy, Mariano, is the detective who she ends up falling in love with because of what happened to her best friend. So I wanted the other guy in there because he shows a piece of the story and a piece of my character that I can't show without him. So I think that's a really key element when you're deciding which characters stay and which characters go. Like, that's how I decide. And then a lot of times their personalities, I'm just kind of feeling it out as I go through the first draft. I don't totally know. I don't know if I've gotten it right. I don't know if I'm going to keep them. I don't know what I'm going to change until I get to the end and I do my first read through.
Yeah. I do think a lot of development of your characters happens in edits. Like, I think
Agreed.
I mean, you can create characters and then realize, they're super awesome and they're the scientist character but then maybe they don't serve the story. And so a lot of creating characters, I think you can spend a lot of time trying to develop characters without ever placing them in the story, and you're just wasting time. You want to kind of have that story and then moving forward, always at the forefront of your head. What's propelling my story forward? Is this character and you can leave characters in until your second draft or whatever, but you have to kind of at some point go through the process, like you mentioned, Steph, and some of them won't work. They just won't.
Right.
We have it. Is that it? Is that our last question for today?
No, we have the
we've got
Wattpad.
one more.
one more.
Yeah, one more question. This one comes from Julia W.
Oh.
And she says, I am looking into sites like Wattpad, and I decided to ask a published author their thoughts on the site and other sites that are similar. Is it a good idea for a writer to use a site like this? If so, what kinds of things are best to post on a place like Wattpad? Short stories, full-length novels, novellas? Have you ever tried Wattpad? And if so, did it work well for you or not? And she's also heard some concerns over theft of stories. And as a teen, she wants to make sure she's only using safe websites. So she would appreciate any input we have.
Okay, my answer has evolved on this, because used to I would have said, don't do Wattpad. Your story could get taken. No real editors or agents even look at Wattpad. There's fine reasons to do it, same as there's fine reasons to write fan fiction, that it's practice, it's a community element, that kind of stuff. But I would have originally told you, no. And then I write for Blink, and they have 2 authors that they got off of Wattpad that they discovered there. One of which or should that be one of whom? One of who? No, one of which, right?
This is why we have editors.
Yeah, I know. I'm a writer, not an editor. Anyway, one of those writers, I'll just talk around it. One of those writers, she was actually approached by my editor. My editor was on Wattpad looking for cool stories. And we had always been told, as writers, I had always been told that editors don't have time for that. They just look at submissions. They don't look at Wattpad or things like that. And my editor was she was looking for cool stories, and she found this story and she thought it was a cool story. And he ended up signing her, and that is In 27 Days by Allison Gervais. So the difference maker for her was that she had like 20 million reads for her story. I mean, it had become a Wattpad phenomenon. And I think those are the people who are getting published off of Wattpad, and it's extremely hard to do that. It's hard to market your Wattpad story. So my suggestion is that you use Wattpad for community, for practice, for things like that, and don't think of it as this is how I'm going to get discovered. You want to be mindful of what you're putting out there. You want to put your best work out there. But that's kind of how my answer has evolved over the years.
Yeah, I mean, anything to add about the theft part, Steph?
Oh, I don't know. That's something that I'm really not sure about. I have not heard of people getting their stories stolen off of Wattpad. I really don't know on that one.
Yeah, I don't have an answer to the theft thing either. I think it's something all authors are paranoid about. We all don't want anyone to read anything we've written before it's completed. So I understand that paranoia. To be honest with you, regarding that, I think the thing that would help safeguard maybe a bit on Wattpad is that it is public. So if you've posted it up there, you're probably not the first person or the only person that's seen it. You will be the first person. You're probably not the only person that's seen it up there. So you're going to have some safeguards with that. Always, do the cheater thing and email yourself copies of your manuscript throughout the process. So you can have record of having it in your, on your machine and on your computer and on the internet even. It's saved there. So there's ways to safeguard yourself there. I too am like Steph. I mean, I would have said the same thing, although I have heard, like Steph, stories of people who have been picked up by a publisher because their stories were found on Wattpad. So things like that, I think it's just indicative of an industry that's constantly changing. And the minute we try to give you a solid answer on something, the water shifts beneath our feet again, and we're trying to find solid ground so we can kind of guide you correctly. But I think that it could be legitimate. This is what I will tell every single teen writer out there. All of these items that we talked to you about, Wattpad, other things that you're going to find on the internet, even groups on Goodreads and just Yahoo groups and chats where you're going to find Facebook groups, all these things are just tools in your toolbox. And some of them are going to work for you. You're going to find friends and make connections. You're going to move forward in your career because some of these tools worked for you. And some of them just simply won't. And so don't put all your faith in one, in one thing, in one website, in one tool. But allow yourself to it's okay to kind of test some of these things out and see if you like them. Be safe. Don't talk to people you don't know. Don't talk to people who are, just be safe. I mean, you hopefully, I would include my parents if I can, to kind of help me keep accountable online. Anytime I'm doing online, my kid is only allowed to be on the internet if the door's open. And we check stuff on the internet for your own safety. I would encourage you to kind of engage in those types of practices. But yeah, maybe it's a tool that'll work for you. I think the biggest impact it can make is if you're looking to get feedback and you're not finding critique partners. And maybe you'll find one through Wattpad. Maybe you'll find some people who are ready to give you feedback. That said, sometimes feedback's not nice and not kind. And so you never know that the motivations of the people posting and giving you feedback on your stories there. So take everything with a grain of salt. Maybe it'll be good for you. Maybe it won't. I would suggest not putting, all your eggs in one basket, and just don't allow your ego or your self-confidence to be dented or overinflated by what happens with your stuff on Wattpad, would be my advice.
That is excellent advice from both of you. I have nothing to add.
Well, then I think that does it for us this time.
Yes.
Anything else, girls?
No.
All right. Well,
keep on writing.
That's right. Thanks again for watching. If you have writing questions, you are always welcome to email any of us. You can also, if you're a Go Teen Writers Notes subscriber, which comes out every couple weeks, you can always hit reply to those emails. Those come to me. They don't like go to a machine or anything. They come straight to me. So I see all of those. So yeah, we love hearing your writing questions and we love interacting with you guys. So keep on writing and we'll see you on the blog.